sound genuine.
Surya? Surya? আসতে কালো বেল নিয়ে আসো, কালো বেল, সুরে তাতে দেখুন আর গরম।
Hi. Hi, everyone. Hello, are you there? Hello.
Hello.
Hi. How are you? How are you doing? Just a minute, I'm just sorting this out. Just,
Hi.
can you hear me?
I can hear you clear. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'm just getting my ears ready here. So sometimes, if, so I just wanted to say hello. It's December 11th. It's 6 p.m. here, and you're in all different parts of the world. This welcome to a new sort of subject, because just to let you know, we have been doing 3 webinars since the beginning of the year, and the 3 webinars were focusing on the music, dance, fusion elements within music, and poetry as well with music. And some of you actually have attended those webinars, and they were from different diverse cultures. And that's the point, to actually fuse these diversities and then try to understand that we are actually on the same common thread. And once that understanding is there, it gives us a much better bearing for evolving ourselves, And as a part of that evolve journey in our lives, I thought happiness is a very, very key element in all of that, whether it's a creative music, it's filmmaking. It's very essential that we look into, the different perspectives of happiness. So basically saying that, today is the event, and I don't want to take too much of the time. And so I would like to first just explain you the way it'll go. First, we'll start with the very, very east, which is Japan, Northeast. And we're going to look at the concepts of Ikigai and Zen, which is very key to the Japanese culture and the Japanese social ecosystem. And we have 2 amazing discussants, Makiko and Izumi. Izumi is a very old friend of mine that we've known for many, many years. And they're both researchers into these field of what are these kind of, what kind of these elements that drive these Ikigai or Zen, and where does it come from, and how does it reflect in our lives. And also one of the most key elements we're going to discuss is how it connects to our holistic health, because happiness, and of course, happiness is emotional, but of course, our physical state of being as well. Now, so once I introduce them, and then we're going to have a very noted discussant from Sweden, Maria Jartman, who's also with us here, which is again in the north, close to the North Pole. Again, we are going into the northern hemisphere of the world, and then we will have way off in the west, southwest, which is of all places in Latin America, Bolivia, which is quite far. So we are pretty much covering all the way from the very northeast to the sort of mid-southwest of the globe. So that's makes it even more interesting today. So thank you very much for joining, and without further ado, I'm Rumi Saifullah, our initiative OneStepBeyond. I'm going to start off with Makiko and Izumi here. Hi, Izumi, are you there?
Hi, Rumi. How are you?
Hi. So why don't we start with you and Makiko? And this is, we are going into the Japanese ways of looking at happiness. Sure. And just to let you know, Sofia Alvarez, who is in Bolivia, who's actually be a co-host, so she's going to let people in, participants in, and she's helping me co-host, and as well as translating the Bolivian person who's going to come on the third as a fourth discussant. Thank you, Izumi. You can start off. Floor is yours.
Right. Thank you, Rumi. Thank you so much for organizing this event. Hi everyone, my name is Izumi. I'm currently working as an academic researcher in Hokkaido University in Japan. And I want to introduce today's speaker, my friend Makiko. So she's going to introduce you guys about what Ikigai is, the concept of Ikigai. But before we start, I want to share a little bit about my story and why I'm interested in Ikigai, as well as Makiko. So before I met Makiko, I was living in a result-oriented life. What I mean by this is that I was always focusing on the results. So as long as I can get the results I wanted, like all my goals, sorry, my cats are screaming behind my back. Sorry about that. So I didn't really care how I got the results. So there were there's no enough self-care, or there's not enough empathy towards myself and others. And also I didn't take a lot of rest. Like I didn't have time. I didn't make time for rest at all in my schedule. And that what happened. So doing that for nearly 10 years, I experienced this face down moment, which was about 10 years ago. That was when I received my PhD degree. So up until then, I was putting all my effort and time to obtain my degree, because I wanted what it was representing, which was for me, which was like success, confidence, and also sense of worthiness. And also I wanted appreciation from others, right? But then when I received my degree, I didn't get any of this. I was actually feeling unfulfilled, and I was also feeling shameful, and also what's the word, unfulfilled, shameful, and I was feeling really empty. And when I experienced that, I lost total confidence in myself, and I didn't know how to move forward from this for many years, at least 5 years or so. But then I met Makiko a few years ago, and that changed my life. I started to change my life. And at that time, Makiko was hosting a retreat event like this. And ever since, Makiko has been my guide to live a process-oriented life, which is, and for this, the process-oriented life, Ikigai is a part of this process. So today, Makiko will introduce you about what it means by process-oriented life. And I'm still in a transition period, so I still have a lot of up and downs, but I feel a lot happier, and also I feel the sense of peace inside myself now. So today, I will just introduce Makiko, her profile. So Makiko is a holistic retreat facilitator in Sapporo, Japan, which is the northern part of Japan. And she's also a writer and a translator specialized in non-dual spiritual teaching. And she was a former associate professor at Hokkaido University, so where she studied the role of arts in society. And Rumi has shared her website on his OneStepBeyond website. So if you're interested in Ikigai, want to know more about Ikigai, please visit her website. So over to you, Makiko. Thank you so much for making the time.
Hi, Makiko, are you there?
聞こえてないです。
Yes, we can hear you. Yes, are you there?
Okay, now, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay,
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Izumi. Thank you, Rumi. And I'm so glad to see you all. I am Makiko. When I was asked to speak about Ikigai, I was thrilled because it is a concept that has always been helping me to take a step forward on the path in my life. Ikigai is a Japanese concept that discusses our reason for living. Iki in Japanese translates to live, and gai describes values. Ikigai is our activities or states of mind that expresses our values, our sense of purpose, what brings us joy and bliss. It's our drive to live further, our inspiration to get out of bed every day. I was, as Izumi mentioned, I was once an associate professor of a university and retired to become a full-time writer. I was in a very competitive environment where the value of the researchers was constantly measured by how many papers they published, how many students they attracted in the seminars, whether they acquired granting aids, etc. The results were calculated by a number of points and reflected in our salaries and promotions. I was successful in acquiring grants and aids or attracting students, but I could not accept the feeling that my worth come from an exterior source. I had always felt that my worth should come from the inside, as does my ikigai. It manifests as a vision, a joy innate in the process of my work, an urge to contribute to the world, and a sense of this is what I am meant to do to make the most of my life. The problem was that my ikigai looked to have a will of my own, the will of its own. It needed a certain amount of time and certain encounters with people and events or books to grow strong enough to be shared with others. So it was difficult to put it in the format of the achievement system of the university. In short, the reason I left there, the university, was to be true to my ikigai. So if we analyze ikigai from motivation point of view, ikigai is explained like this. We can work with extrinsic motivation as well as intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation includes doing things to gain rewards, such as money, promotion, acknowledgement, fame, etc. An intrinsically motivated person, on the other hand, does things primarily for the joy of it. As I see it, our motivation is normally a mixture of the two in varying proportions. However, there are people who are more inclined to be motivated by one or the other. The more one works intrinsically motivated, the more peaceful she may be. That's because she's already content with extreme joy, satisfaction, intrinsic to the process. That makes us more process-oriented. So we do not care so much about the results, whether it will be acknowledged or rewarded. On the other hand, people who are strongly conditioned to be extrinsically motivated will be more results-oriented. So it will be more difficult for them to relax and enjoy the process. The consumption level of intrinsically motivated people is very much likely to be lower than extrinsically motivated people. Resource exhaustion is largely due to the fact that people today are working overwhelmingly out of a sense of extrinsic motivation. If more people would be more intrinsically motivated at work, they could perhaps live in a more modest and sustainable way. The problem of my case was that although I was an intrinsically motivated person, my work environment constantly drove us to work extrinsically motivated. Ikigai is about maximization of intrinsic motivation to work from the inside of ourselves. So it makes us naturally process-oriented to cherish each details of our work. However, just working in an intrinsically motivated manner is not sufficient to call it ikigai. The type of intrinsic motivation ikigai presents is related to the society and in many cases related to self-actualization. It's not only about things we love. Can you see it? But it is also about what the world needs and what you are good at. So it looks like this.
So it consists of what you love,
Yes.
what your goal, what you are good at, and what's the world need. So where the whole circle.
Yeah, ikigai is at the intersection of the three circles.
Thank you.
Yes. So, do you feel you know your ikigai? When we focus on intrinsic motivation, questions that might help you find out your ikigai is there anything in your life that you just cannot help doing just for the joy of it? Even if no one appreciates it? Or
It can be anything.
Yeah,
it can be anything, right? Sweeping the floor is also counts.
Yeah. Or what has been the constant source of inspiration and joy throughout your life?
Yeah.
So
Sure.
okay.
No, I was just saying that if you want to show something or whatever, I mean, I'm just saying that feel free, you can show it on paper or something like that.
Yes.
So, and also it would be interesting, you know, to share some of the concepts like, you know, we were talking about earlier, you know, Japanese, anyway, that's fine. Carry on.
Maybe
Sure.
question and answers.
Just
Yeah.
for reflecting certain things. Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Thank you. Ikigai makes you also strong and helps you to live regardless of what may happen. Viktor Frankl, the founder of logotherapy and the author of the book Night and Fog, arrived at the Auschwitz concentration camp carrying a manuscript of his life's work. When it was confiscated by Nazis, he felt compelled to write it all over again. This purpose made him persevere, and he became a Holocaust survivor. We can say that it was his ikigai. Another classic book about ikigai was written by psychiatrist Mieko Kamiya, who worked in a leprosy community on a small island in Japan. Being diagnosed with Hansen disease at that time, which was 60 years ago, meant in Japan, facing a gradual death sentence and intense discrimination and expulsion. They were often ostensibly considered to be dead in order to protect the family against also becoming a target of discrimination and expulsion. So they had to leave their loved ones, never to return. Most of them once contemplated suicide. Kamiya's question was, what gave them courage to keep going on, even in such a situation? You can also do a thought experiment. Imagine you are in the same situation. What do you think would motivate you to live further? The answer is your ikigai. So in their case, the community was supported by paid or volunteer work by the patients themselves. So once they arrived there, they accepted a role that they were still able to do or inspired to do for the community. Their feeling of being still useful to others was one of the most empowering urge for them to live further. In Japan, people who feel ikigai in helping others often say, I am the one who is helped. 生かされてます。That means the joy of helping you makes me feel so good and alive. I appreciate that. We feel ikigai when doing things for others really pleases us. And it also means doing for ourselves. There is a beautiful English idiom you use when somebody says thank you to you. That's my pleasure. If you say so and really mean it, it is likely that you feel ikigai. Besides the sense of purpose Frankl discovered, this joy we feel in helping others is a life-giving force inherent in our work. If we do not touch with this life-giving force, we work naturally, intrinsically motivated, energized by our ikigai. In this climate of capitalism, work is generally considered to be necessary to make a living, but is not desired. Many Japanese people think that way too. Everyone has ikigai, but just it is often obscured by too many things we have to do every day. However, if we do not lose touch with ikigai, work can be life-giving and joyful. So have you found your ikigai now? Once you find your ikigai, in order to make the maximum use of the life-giving power of ikigai, I recommend you to explore your ikigai to be flexible and open. When I left the university, I thought writing books was my ikigai, but unfortunately, I couldn't find any publishers who wanted to publish my book once I lost my position in the university. Should I deplore the world or wait until Lady Luck smiles on me? There are many people who look back on their lives and say, actually, I wanted to do such and such, but I couldn't because blah, blah, blah. But that's not the kind of things that I would want to do when I get old. So I asked myself, what element inspires me with writing books? The answer was, I love sharing inspirations with others. If that's the case, I thought, I can do that right now, completely on my own. So I started writing blog articles, self-publishing Kindle books, and organizing and talking at events. Sharing inspiration with others was a more refined version of my ikigai than writing books. But recently, I found an even more refined version of my ikigai. That is, I love sharing experiences that inspire me. Then I started organizing meditation events because meditation has always been my primary source of inspiration. Through this meditation project, I approached deeper into the core of my ikigai, and I felt more fulfilled. And that helped me discover more ways to express my ikigai as well. So if you meet any hindrances to express your ikigai, you can consider it as an opportunity to refine it. Then you will find it is really simple. It can be like making the world beautiful, tapping people's potential, connecting different things and creating synergy, etc. That means it is applicable to any situation. You will be able to find many outlets for it. The good thing about ikigai is that you can express it in more than one form. Ikigai is a concept that has actually saved many people against depression after losing their job or after retirement. Losing our job that corresponded to our ikigai might be a painful experience, but if we clearly see what element in the job inspired us, which is the core of our ikigai, everything else may appear to be incidental, which we can let go of easily. With the workplace, we have just lost being one of them. Then our ikigai might help us to recreate our life and push us into a new stage of our life. It makes us resilient. Another, yeah, please.
We have one more minute.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Another thing I learned through my experience was that ikigai is not all or nothing. We can start very small. And when it is truly our ikigai, we feel the same amount of joy, regardless of how small the expression might seem to be. As long as hitting the vein of the life-giving force of ikigai is concerned, we do not need to mind whether it is done in our job or hobby, worldwide, or just inside our family. How talented we are, or whether we are professionally equipped or not, are also secondary issues. More important thing is rather to keep expressing our ikigai in whatever situation we may find it possible. Ikigai can be nurtured only by practice. The more we express our ikigai, the more enlivened we are. Isn't it wonderful that we have means for happiness in our hands? We are never a victim of some deplorable situation, or we do not have to wait until Lady Luck smiles on us. If you want further information about Ikigai, please visit my website. The link is at the end of my profile on the website. Thank you.
Well, Makiko,
Thank you.
thank you very much for giving. You spoke with a very calming aura. You know, it could feel that the ikigai, or the Zen kind of feel, was actually there. We don't somehow take things slowly at times, and we always sort of are somehow pursuing something that is outside us all the time. But anyway, I am not the specialist. But saying that, I would like to now, we will come back to questions after we finish, because we need to maintain time. And then it's better to get all the concepts together and then to have the questions from the audience. So I'm going to introduce now, I'm going to go, thank you very much, Makiko and Izumi.
Thank you.
I'm going to go to Sweden, the beautiful Scandinavian country. I mean, she's from Sweden, but at the moment, Maria, you're in Norway, right? Am I correct? Yes. So I'll introduce to Maria Jartman, and she will bring us to a very interesting northern Scandinavian, and it goes to, the Nordic and the Viking, and she will explain all that to see some of the concepts of happiness and art of balanced living, because happiness is interconnected to the art of balanced living as well. What we consider a balance, a good balance between emotion, physical, mental, and nutritional, and all the other things that goes along with it. So with further ado, Maria, I would like you to, floor is yours. So
Thank you.
please.
Thanks. Hello, everyone. My name is Maria. I'm presently in Norway. I'm brought and raised up in Sweden. I've been living in Norway for the last 11 years, and I also live in London. Short about my history, I'm a Norwegian politician. I've been doing that for the last 8 years, where I live up in the mountains in a ski resort in Norway. Right now, my family normally is skiing on a Saturday. I come from the north of Sweden, close to the native of Sweden called Sami. My mother was from a ski resort as well. I was brought and raised in Stockholm and been living there. What I would like to talk to you about today is what is we have three things that is very special and unique for Scandinavia. And I will come back to those three things. What I would like to say is all of Scandinavia is a very small place on this earth if you compare it with citizens and inhabitants. In a total, we're less than 20 million for the four countries that I live in. So it's Iceland, Denmark, Finland, and Norway. And that is together Scandinavia. What we have that New York Times is constantly referring to is a high rate of measures on happiness and life satisfaction. Even though we were 20, 30 years ago on a very high level of suicide, that has gone down to putting us in a place around 150 of 182 countries, or so it's 83. Sorry, 83 countries. So have a very low suicidal rate today, even though we live very cold and dark up in the north. But what we have that I think is making us a happier population is three things called hygge, which first of all came from Norway, that's been used a lot in Denmark, more frequently used in Denmark. But it's actually from the North language called hygge, and that means to comfort, which came from hugar, which means mood. So what we have is that we have something called hygge. And what that means is to have a great time among friends, nature, food, and a social life. It can be the small things, like lighting a candle at nighttime at home because it's really dark. It can also be having a nice discussion, a conversation with your friends, or just laying in the sofa, enjoying that good book. It's about the small things in life. And then you can say that you hygge yourself. And it's not translated right to say that it's about having a good time or enjoying yourself, because it's a little tweak there that is different. It is not about making an effort for it. It's just very natural in a person's life in Scandinavia to embrace and enjoy small things in life. We've had a lot of wars throughout our history as well, and it's been really cold up here. Right now it's 17 minus where I am degrees Celsius. So you have to just being warm, getting the nice gloves on. That is something that can be a hyggelig time. And the second thing we have is something called lagom. And that brings us back to the Vikings, as they say. And it was about having laget om. The whole crowd around the bonfire, the Vikings, had to get a little bit of the beer they called mjöd that they were making those days. So you couldn't take too much and you couldn't drink too little, because it had to be just enough lagom, so that everyone around that bonfire could have a sip. So lagom, if it's actually from there, we don't know, but it's more like a philosophy. And it's about, there's two types in the world: the ones who wants what they love, and the ones who loves what they get. And I think that in Scandinavia, we're more among the people who loves what we get. We're not enough or happy enough, but we're happy with what we have. So lagom is something that is really a strong philosophy in Scandinavia. And there's also about this, people maximizing and the one that are satisfied. And I think Scandinavians are mostly satisfied. And that brings me a little bit to the conversation with the former speaker that we heard, when she said there was three circles that she described. And it was what the world need, what you are good at, and what you love. But I think in Scandinavia, we don't have any pressure of being good at anything. And we don't have a pressure of doing something for what the world needs. And I think that brings it, it's a little bit easier in our the way that we are raised, because we are good enough without having a passion or loving something. And we don't need to give the world a lot. We don't need to be the smartest or professors or study, or there's no musts. So when you get raised in Sweden, Norway, or Denmark, it's about what makes you happy. And if you want to become a chef, or if you want to become a cleaning lady, or if you want to become a professor, or if you want to be an entrepreneur, it's okay. It's okay with any of those. We don't have private schools, and we don't separate the classes that much. There's a lot of people having a lot of money in these countries. We have the oil, you know, and we have a lot of great entrepreneurs with IKEA, H&M, Spotify. All of that comes from our little countries. But there's no need, there's no must, there's no pressure. And I think that brings out one of the most things, which is creativity. So we spend a lot of time outdoors, and we also activate ourselves. We train a lot, but we're not hysterical in any way. So what's important for Scandinavia is to enjoy life, to have some butter sometimes. Even though we know it's really healthy to just eat healthy, we can unna, which is like give ourselves a little bit slack. We don't need to be, if you see at our countries, we have a lot of organic focus, and Norway is actually the world's best country in recycling bottles and cans. So we really think about the environment and health, but we still sell a lot of candy here, and it's okay. And we have butter in our cookies sometimes. So it's not about having to live your life in a certain way to fulfill yourself, because it's not about fulfilling me. I'm just a small person in this world. It's about the togetherness. So hygge is about having that little cup of tea with a lighted candle. Lagom is about not taking more than than you're happy with. And then we have this concept called fika, which is really, I haven't heard about it in any other country. Let me know if you've heard about it. But it's about everyone that's employed in these countries have breaks with coffee or tea together with amongst other people at the office or at your workspace. So every day, at least once, mostly twice, you stop working for 15 minutes to have this conversation going socially amongst your people at your work. And fika is a phenomenon that even big companies in Scandinavia that goes abroad and expand have to take with them, because the staff, they need the fika. And we come in quite late in the mornings because it's dark, so we don't start work until 8 or 9. And we go home quite early, like 4 or 5, because it gets dark and we need to go home. So we have a short time of work, but in that time we have a lot of hygge, a lot of fika, which also makes us creative. So the way I've been seeing the world, and I've been traveling a lot around the world with my family throughout the last 15 years, is that it's not about achieving, it's not about thriving, it's not about becoming. And when we look at the Asian countries and when we look at the US countries, what I think we feel is, oh, I wonder how happy they'll be when they die. Because it's not about thriving all the way to the bitter end to become something. It's about actually enjoying where you are now. And even though if you want to become a famous professor or a really strong entrepreneur, like a politician like myself, it's okay. It's okay that too. But you just have to remember the small, happy moments in life and enjoy them, and not constantly thinking what you can do to make yourself happier tomorrow, because there might not be a tomorrow. And if it's not tomorrow, the most important thing is to enjoy this day right now, here and now. And I think that hygge, lagom, fika is what makes Scandinavians so happy, even though most of them live in darkness 6 months of the year and have snow at least 4 months of the year and minus 10 degrees Celsius. So enjoying the spring when it comes and it's flowering and it's beautiful, and everyone in Scandinavia runs out, even if it's only a couple of degrees plus, we're going out with shorts on. We're like, whoa, it's starting. And enjoying the summer when you can actually go in the sea if it's not too cold. And then loving the winter and enjoying it, putting on skis and warm clothes, not getting cold, but enjoying the crispy outdoors environment that you can spend a lot of time in. So it's about using the qualities and the things that you have around you to make the day the most. And it doesn't have to be expensive or locked or thriving. That is why I think Scandinavian is rated by almost everyone one of the most happiest countries in the world. And amongst from that, we have a lot of free education. We don't, as I said before, have a lot of private schools. It's not so much about having a lot of homework. We're not talking about getting into Harvard or blah, blah, blah. It's good enough. In Finland, they don't even have homework. They do their schoolwork at school. And when they have the school off, it's their free time, which also is a special thing and quite unique. I don't think any other country in the world have that. So each country in Scandinavia develop their own little things to make our people, as they believe, more creative to become, if they want to, good leaders. Because to become a leader, you have to have the mindset of breeding different types and solving problems. So we don't really have a plan for our next generation except for them being happy. And I think that is a very unique thing with these 4 countries, that we teach them a lot about being outside early. We teach them about being outdoors early. We teach them about dressing themselves in wool so they don't get cold, and to bathe a lot and learn how to swim early. But we don't force them into boxes and having them put a status on if you have a certain education. In my country, doctors and teachers don't make that much. Not in Norway, not in Denmark, and not in Iceland, because it's the way of wanting to choose an education that gives to others. And that is really high rated. So in my country, even if it's not well paid, the people that give to others, the people that sits around having a fika with your colleagues at work, they are our heroes. So yeah, I think this is some discussions around why we're happy in a very dark and cold country.
Thank you. Thank you, Maria. Thank you very much. It's just interesting when you say you're not running after a perceived notion that, you know, being successful and how you define success and how you define to reach certain, that you're elevated, you're from, you know, you're different from the rest of the people, you're an elitist, you know, that whole, basically, I mean, there are 2 things: the survival of the fittest. So it's basically,
We're healthy and strong.
Yeah, you have to be strong. But the question is, not everybody is strong, right? So the question is, but they have a right to be happy as well. So if you're driven with an external perception that what drives to be happy and what drives you to be happy, and a certain image, and I think that's something that we need to rethink. So saying that, I would like to very much now come on to our 3rd speaker, fourth speaker. Sophia, are you there?
Yes.
Sophia, are you there? Yeah. This is Sophia. She's actually a pianist, a noted pianist in Bolivia. And she's helped me to bring in Mr. Elias, who's actually from Bolivia. He's a noted professor. and he's done research. And most interestingly, we would look into the kind of ancient wisdom, which Maria had touched on as well, from the Samo. I think that's the word you said, right? Samas or Samo.
Yeah, the Samis are special because they never got too much because they had to be on their way. So it's only lagom, mia, to carry. And they
Sure,
only
sure.
hunted what they had to eat.
Sure. So speaking of that, we are ancient wisdom. We are now going back to Latin America, very much near the whole Amazon basin region, but in Bolivia, and particularly the, Sophia, you can mention the particular, the tribe that we're talking about is Guerra. Is that correct? Am I spelled it correct? So anyway, I'll let you introduce to Elias, and I would like you to give it a little bit of introduction. So here is Sophia, who's a musician herself, and on to Bolivia, gentlemen and ladies. Bolivia.
Well, hello,
On,
it's a
Sophia.
pleasure for me being here. I will be translating for Elias between Spanish to English. And well, Elias is a really recognizable professor and also researcher. And well, I admire him because he belongs to the Guarani tribe, which is between Paraguay and Bolivia. And well, he's a very clever person. You will love the way he talks too. I will try to explain in the best way what he tries to say. And well, here is Elias. Elias, ya puedes comenzar. Tu micrófono. Tu micrófono está desactivado. Elías, tu micrófono está desactivado.
Ahora sí. Yasoropay Sofía, de Parea Cheveramo, allá de Amondo, vi Tamareme o Paete Cuape, Yayemogueta Ñaiba, Ñandero Tumpa Jere, no Jaiko, Ome Ñandere Tecobe, Jare Ome Ñandere Ñe, ¿no? Yande Purevaina, Yayemogueta. Saludado en guaraní. He dicho muchas gracias por la invitación. Un gusto poder compartir este espacio y bueno, pues que son los espíritus tutelares, los dioses, los que nos permiten que nos podamos unir hoy día y estar en este espacio y poder compartir la palabra.
So he just talked to us in Guarani and then in Spanish. He told to us that many thanks for being here, and are the goddess that allows us to be like together today.
Y bueno, hablar de la felicidad, hay que hablar también de la tristeza, porque sin ella no se podría entender esta otra parte.
Well, talk about happiness. First of all, talk about sadness.
Porque este mundo básicamente está construido de la oposición, pero esa oposición que se necesitan y se complementan, así como el día necesita de la noche, así como el mal necesita del bien y el bien del mal. Ocurre lo mismo con un estado, que la felicidad es un estado.
Well, this world is built by the opposites, as the day is constructed by the day and the night. It's the same thing that a state needs to be constructed by the opposites.
Entonces, si lo vemos por ese lado, desde luego necesitamos de este otro estado, ¿no? Porque de ella aprendemos. Ahora, el tema a mí me parece importante es ver cómo lo asumimos ese momento de tristeza.
It's important to see how we assume this moment of sadness, and that's why this topic is so important.
En guaraní nosotros hablamos de este estado teco-yerovia. Para nosotros teco es la vida y yerovia es esa felicidad, esa alegría, es ese estado de la persona que se manifiesta en distintas maneras.
In Guarani, the translation is Teko Yerovia. Teko means life, and Yerovia means the state of happiness. So that expresses the state of happiness of every person.
Yo decía se manifiesta en distinto estado, y uno de ellas tiene que ver a nivel individual y otro a nivel colectivo.
It gets manifested in different states. One has to, it's about individually, and another one is a collective way.
Cuando hablamos a nivel individual, estamos hablando de esa manifestación de un estado que me permite a mí encontrarme conmigo mismo y poder sacar también hacia afuera eso que yo tengo adentro. Y eso pasa por esa alimentación, por ese estado que no solamente es material, sino también espiritual. Entonces, en el momento que esto se manifiesta, del cual hablo yo de tecoyerovia, tiene que ver cuando lo material y lo espiritual se conjugan y encuentran un equilibrio.
This tecoyerovia is the internal manifestation. When it's talked about the individual manifestation, it's something that comes into the person and gets outside to get manifested, and allows us to talk about this tecoyerovia.
Entonces, esto es muy importante, ¿no? Al momento de yo ir entendiéndolo. Y lo otro, lo colectivo de lo que yo hablaba, lo colectivo necesitan los mismos elementos también para encontrar este tecoyerovia que pasa por la cuestión material y la cuestión espiritual. Pero esto se manifiesta en la comunidad, en el estado, por ejemplo, en la calidad de la risa.
Okay, this is manifested by the quality of the love, and at the same way of the individual way, in the collective way is needed two things. The first one element is like the material one, and the second one is the spiritual.
Porque prácticamente, como yo hablaba hace rato de la felicidad como un estado, una forma, un nivel de estar y de sentir, también pasa por una cuestión de energías, ¿no? Este mundo está construido de energía, y esas energías, cuando conjugan, permiten también que se encuentren un estado de lo colectivo. Y eso, por ejemplo, en la calidad de la risa, si hay una risa más fuerte, de distintas formas, cuando en la comunidad se escuchan ese bullicio, entonces uno se da cuenta si esa comunidad, si ese pueblo, ese lugar, ese colectivo es feliz o es infeliz.
Well, someone can realize where the community or this village is happy or unhappy because of the love. You can notate and realize how loud, how slow, and the velocity and every aspect of the love that indicates us the happiness of the community.
Pero también quiero agregar un tercer elemento a esto, lo que yo estoy hablando. Hay que ver también con el entorno. Y el entorno hace mucho al estado de la persona. Y ese entorno pasa por esa relación intrínseca, por esa relación interdependiente también con el entorno. Estoy hablando de los animales, estoy hablando de las plantas, estoy hablando del aire, estoy hablando de tierra, estoy hablando de ese estado mismo que nosotros tenemos y que dependemos de ella.
Also, he wants to talk about the third thing in this context, which is the environment, because that allows also to have an intrinsic relationship with the nature and with the animals.
A veces nosotros podemos decir, ¿cómo ¿cómo puede depender mi estado, mi felicidad de lo que hay en mi entorno? Y claro, no nos damos cuenta de que también lo que está en mi entorno influye sobre mi estado, ¿no? Y eso también pasa por el tiempo, por ejemplo, ¿no? Porque a veces, y esto creo que no hace falta comprobarlo, si digo, tener suficientes datos y no suficientes, solamente mirar, de acuerdo al clima, de acuerdo al a veces se dan cuenta también las personas cuando, cómo manifiesta, cómo expresa su sentir, ¿no? A veces donde hay más calor es distinta a las personas, donde hay más fríos también. Y bueno, esto es decir, relativo, pero que se manifiesta, ¿no?
Also, the question is how is the persons influenced by the environment? Because you can notice that we develop certain like behaviors when it's cold, when it's hot, and it's very noticeable when, for example, you go from one place to another and the climate changes. That also make us our emotional state dependent of the climate.
Y bueno, quiero ir cerrando un poco también por mencionar otro elemento. El tema del tecoyerovia también pasa por por ese estado también, pero por sentir, pero además por el tener, ¿no? A nosotros nos han dicho muchas personas que vienen, a veces nos visitan, como guaraní estoy hablando, y dice, pero ¿por qué estos guaraní ríen, charlan? Y cuando a veces uno va, obviamente, al ojo del foráneo, el tener se manifiesta en la materialidad, ¿no? Y el guaraní no es que tenga gran cosa, tienen lo necesario y creo que esto hace que también manifieste su sentir y su felicidad, ¿no?
Yeah. The fourth element is consists between the being and the having. And when a foreign person comes to the Guarani tribe and watches why they are happy, they ask themselves, why are these people happy? They must have a lot of things. They passed by this state of material, but in fact, it's not that they are just with the being, they are happy.
Entonces, ¿cómo puedo encontrar en pequeños detalles? Porque la vida también son detalles y los pequeños detalles son los que cuentan, ¿no? Y son de repente los que nos hace también diferentes. Y aquí quiero en esos pequeños detalles, para nosotros, en gran medida también el idioma es felicidad.
For they also the language is happiness because they take also into account the little details.
Por eso yo siempre, bueno, y creo que esto también en general, en el pueblo guaraní, en la nación guaraní, se habla mucho de la importancia del ñe como un elemento de construcción, de inyección, no sé si darle el término metafórico, de felicidad, porque el ñe, o sea, la palabra, toca las entrañas, ¿no? Toca no sé si en castellano hablan del corazón, pero eso es muy objetivo, es un poco, no encaja, yo hablaría más de las entrañas, porque la palabra llega ahí, y la palabra es felicidad, porque la palabra te inyecta ese anímico y te hace sentir quién uno es, ¿no?
In the Guarani nation, a very important term is the ñe. That means it's something that goes through the heart and further than that, and that makes you feel fulfilled.
Claro, y por eso yo quiero cerrar con esto. El guaraní un poco piensa con las entrañas. Y en el momento en que vamos con eso, siempre vamos a andar feliz, ¿no? Porque en nuestro corazón, nuestras entrañas, lo profundo del ser, que siempre está también contento porque muchas de las cosas que uno ve hacia afuera se las puede soportar cuando se tiene felicidad, cuando se tiene ese equilibrio material y espiritual y se lo lleva adentro, ¿no?
So the Guarani feels with the vowels, that is deep down than the heart and deep down spiritually talking, and that allows them to feel way more and feel fulfilled.
Y bueno, quiero cerrar con esto que siempre tengamos tristeza para tener más felicidad. Tesoro Bay. Gracias.
He wants to close that with this phrase. We should always have sadness, so we have also happiness, Yesorobe, which is many things.
Thank you, Sophia. Thank you. It's interesting spin to all our audience here and including the wonderful discussants. Thank you very much. I would, before I open the floor, I have one or two things. I mean, I was thinking of this and I was just thinking that, you know, we have two things, passion and mission in life. Now, passion and mission in life, there are two different things, right? But we, you know, the best would be to blend it together. And, you know, while we, you know, I would leave that to the discussants today and to the audience. I mean, these are some of the things we are constantly striving for: the balance, the passion and mission. How can they be together, blended, so that it can flows well? Because we, and also when you, the interesting aspect that came out of the last speaker is that where there is darkness, there's light. Where there's light, there's darkness, right? So we strive to be happy, but needs to be also know what is sadness, unless we wouldn't understand the real essence of happiness, right? Because we are never content for some reason, not we, but many of us are striving for that balance, but while being not content. And we don't know when that content will come in that sort of journey where we are always thinking of future external things that would make us happy, you know. So that's why we are always, you know, and by the time we are content, it probably we lived probably 80% of our lives. So with that, I would basically leave the discussion to the discussant, Maria, Izumi, from your perspectives. As I said, I mean, mission, passion, mission. How can we blend it together? Then I had a couple of just observation on, you know, on things like, you know, the longevity of life, like Okinawa, you know, for instance, or parts of Japan. And there's 5 blue zones in the world. Is there any spiritual dimension besides being those places organically healthy and we take the right fruits or food? Is there something else to it that makes it like that, makes it 5 blue zones? And now these blue zones are where you live a very, very long, healthy life, which then makes you also happy. Or you are happy no matter what, because you just live in a very healthy environment and you have the whole aura about the place. Any comments, anything, please? I mean, the floor is open to all of you. Or please share anything that you think or you are seeking for in terms of happiness or sadness, you know, that struck you. You know, feel free. This is very open platform. So, you know, I mean, the idea is to just sort of blend our thoughts together to find better ways. Yeah, go ahead. Izumi, you want to unmute yourself? Yeah, you want to say something? Maria? No, I'm just trying to.
Something about Okinawa.
Yeah, I mean, what is it actually, the longevity? You know, people live over 100 years. Now, is it because of the thing? I mean, what is it that? Is it something very organic, or is it something that is to do with their mindset? So if you can share some light on that, you know, what makes those places very special? Yeah, can you unmute yourself? You're not, you're muted. Sorry, we can't hear you.
My mic was on the other
Yeah.
side.
So you can answer, sure. I mean,
Yeah,
the idea is,
yeah,
what is it that makes, for example, Okinawa, the people live 100 years or longer, you know?
yeah, from Ikigai point of view, just that's because they never retire. So people who are over 100 years, centurions, also keep working.
Okay.
So yeah, whatever like small jobs they can do, they still keep working, and I think it's empowering thing for them to do, to be helpful to others and to be appreciated. And that's also life-giving and makes them feel live longer.
Well, that's interesting. You say that. Maria, I have a question to you. I don't know, you're on mute. I was wanting to ask you something. Yeah, Maria, so, you know, the Japanese, the Ikigai concept of working after you retire, while when we go into the Nordic part of the world, it's like that coffee for 5-10 minutes, you know, after you start work. And then you kind of take 6 weeks holiday, which is usually more than what they have in the States for 2 weeks and in most of the part of the world. But it's interesting. What I'm asking, my question is to you, is that what do you think on your part of the culture that they don't take the work too seriously, and they take a lot of time in between to just be, you know, the state of being, rather than having the state of mind only. So I was just wanting to reflect, because
Oh.
it's very interesting what we found on Okinawa, people living over 100 years, they still find love for their work and they keep on working, right? So I'm just wanting to, you know, just ask your perspective, you know, how you
Yeah.
see this contrast.
Yeah, I can answer it. And I think, is it, do you say Makiko?
Yes,
Mike-
Makiko.
Yeah,
Makiko.
Makiko. Like Makiko said, I think that at work, they live longer because they don't stop working. I think that is what I believe is super important, but it doesn't have to be a work in the traditional sense of work, but it has to be about doing something.
Yeah,
And if that is running your own little farmhouse, or having chess with your friends, or but it's about not staying home and isolating you, because I think the social thing, if you see all these countries that was discussed, there's a big social gatherings throughout the blue zones. For Greece and Italy, you meet out in the plaza. That's where you meet. That's where you see people at all time. You're not you're not isolated. You're not on your own. And I think living a long life is very much about your social environment. And if it's with nature, animals, other people, caring for the old ones, like they do in Italy, like they do in Japan, and like they do in Greece, that is a fantastic thing. In Costa Rica and California, you do a lot of socializing. It's a social, both of those places I've been to. It's really nice. People say hi, they stop talking to you, very American. But it's the social part that I think is more important than the actual task of your work. So I think that for us up north, I think we live very long for being such a cold country, with such a lot of work that has to do with physical measurements. You know, a lot of work here. We also work it's a lot of hard work in Scandinavia. Actually, it's not so much office work like you have in the big cities. We're a very split country. We have fjords. It's small amount of people living everywhere. They're farmers, and we live out in the country, and the biggest city in Scandinavia is Stockholm with 1.7 million people. So we're all over Scandinavia. So I think that the blue zones that is very famous and known, I don't think it's actually the food. I don't. I think it's an over exaggerating thing that you have to eat well, or you have to train a lot. You have to do lagom of everything. You have to enjoy and live and not be afraid of dying, because it's not the one who lives the longest that is the happiest, for sure.
Yeah.
It's about enjoying life. So if we stop focusing on how to become 100 and how to eat and what to do and how to think and what to behave like to be old, and instead think about how we can make the most of every day we have alive.
Sure. No, absolutely, dot on. And saying that, actually, you know, you know, it's very interesting that we also looked at the tribal communities in Bolivia or in Paraguay and parts of Amazon. I mean, they also live with nature, and they practice ancient wisdom, ancient medicine, and it's very holistic. So I think each has this very unique spin. I mean, I'm a big fan of Rumi, because Rumi, the famous Mevlana, the poet of 12th century, who settled in Turkey, in Konya. And it's interesting if you look at their poetry of those people. I mean, you know, the great saints like Rumi, and also contemporary writers like Khalil Gibran. It's very interesting. It's more of the state of the being rather than just the state of the mind. It's more of your being, or evolved being, right? You know, once you identify with your own aura and being, and not let your ego sort of control you, I think then you've kind of reached that nirvana of happiness, because then it's not, you don't have to be pulled in or provided happiness from external happenings.
Yeah.
So,
I think the biggest problem we have in the world right now is that we are a bunch of narcissists. It's all about your inner self. How will I evolve? How will I become the most happiest person and live the longest and never get sick? And if we stop thinking about ourselves, because if it's a terror bombing in Paris, nobody in the world wants to fly because they're afraid it's going to be a terror thing in their destination or their airport tomorrow. But the thing is that if we stop living and we start living with fear in mind at all time, the same with the COVID now, we will not live lives that are worth living. So if we stop thinking, okay, so I might die tomorrow, it's okay. My children will survive. My mother died when I was 12. I survived fantastically. Of course, I was sad for a while, but humans move on. That's our biggest gift. And we can eat almost anything. There's two species in the world that can eat everything. It's us and the pigs. So in Asia, you eat a lot of fish. In Greece, you eat a lot of olives. And somewhere else, you eat small insects. And it doesn't really matter, because we're built to be able to eat it all and have a system that can take care of it. But what's interesting is, and this is about the whole, our history, is that survival of the fittest. So if you start thinking too much about what you eat, what you live, how you live, what you do, you will not increase your possibilities of survival. You will decrease them. You will make them less. So then you will be more vulnerable, because if you don't eat everything, then you will get allergic to things. You will have, there will be problems if you don't eat milk and then you drink milk. You will get sick because the body is not used to it. So I think that if we can stop being so narcissistic about ourselves and think that we are made to survive, and if we keep our children and the next generation strong and let them do everything. And my parents were built on cans because it was really popular in the 60s and 70s. And they all had cans of everything, croissants in cans and cans. And my dad is super healthy and is 85 plus, but he's been happy his whole life. So I think that, I don't know, I'm not saying you should eat junk food. I'm saying you should just not focus on and feel bad about things you do, even if it's not by the Bible, that is the health Bible these days.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's that balance. You know, you don't have to go you don't have to go extreme onto any direction. But I think it's the most important if that you're being comfortable with your own self. You're at ease with yourself. I think that's most people are not when they're unhappy. They're not at ease with themselves because they're always in this external perception of striving for something out there, which they're not.
And then they might think they will get, but then they might think that they will get better and feel better if they eat right, train right, act right, do right. But that's the problem, Rumi. I think that you have to feel it within yourself. And then these are just small turns on the bumpy road.
Pieces of the puzzle. Yes. I'd love you to ask any questions to the audience. I would, as I said earlier, please feel free. I see Pauline, I see Slavica from Croatia. We have a very, very interesting mix. I see Elo from Estonia and, you know, Japan, of course. And then we have across the world. So I see Mustafa here from Istanbul, from Turkey. Well, he's here, but yeah, you know, he's a good friend, the Turkish ambassador here. So Mustafa, anything, all of you, please feel free. You know, it's a whole question of evolving and learning. It's not really, you know, all of us come with some kind of uniqueness that it's a collective consciousness, really. So, you know, by all means, anything from anybody else? Sophia, do you want to ask any question? Are you
Rumi,
there?
can I talk?
Yeah, sure. Please. Yes, please talk.
Hi, greetings to everybody. I'm sorry I missed the beginning. Somehow I had difficulties logging in. But I'm not sure whether Rumi at the beginning has mentioned the findings of one study which was done by Harvard about happiness and what makes people happy. And according to that study, they emphasize that purchasing experience is valuable, that pro-social spending on others is important, and that buying time is important. And I think that Swedish experience, when people have a long vacation, that's also something what confirms this theory about buying time. But on the other hand, I think that Maria mentioned something what is very important: how to live here, how to be here and now. So when we live in present, definitely we are more happy. But what is happiness? Is that continuous stage? No, it's not. Happiness comes and goes. But how can we be okay when things are more difficult, when things are more challenging? I think that sometimes we are naive, thinking that some people are always happy. But I think no one is always happy. We all have certain phases when we are sometimes more happy, sometimes less happy, or when we are miserable, you know, and that's life. And I think that we just need to be aware that that's life. Life is dynamic, it's different, sometimes nice, sometimes difficult, sometimes inspiring. And I think that we need to be aware of that. Happiness is not just continuous stage. It comes and it goes. But I think that not being so much obsessed by ourselves, but being more connected with other people, sharing more, supporting each other, being part of certain networks, being family, being friends. I think that that's something what is really, really important, and what we all have to learn. But that's also connected with our inner state. And I think that that's a key. How do we feel inside? Do we feel inside okay? Do we feel comfortable with ourselves? Or are we constantly comparing ourselves with other people? Are we constantly idealizing things, blaming other people for our failures and so on? So I think it's complicated, happiness, we all want to be happy, but it's not always to be happy. And I think that it's just important that we are aware that life is dynamic, sometimes good, sometimes bad, sometimes inspiring, sometimes not inspiring, depending on who are the people that are surrounding us, and depending on how we feel when we are alone. And I think that that's also very important, that we feel okay when we are alone, that we are not always dependent on other people, that other people bring us happiness and so on. So that just, these are some of my thoughts, and I hope I was not repetitive, because
No, it's fine. I mean, it reminds me of one thing, particularly that was brought in by our Bolivian speaker about sadness. In Rumi's poetry, a lot of things they're talking about, what is the enriching experience you take back from going through a difficult time to going through that sadness and sorrow. Because of that sadness and sorrow, one also finds wisdom, which makes him on the path of happiness. This is something which was very unique with some of the scholars from those days, like Rumi, Mevlana Jalaluddin Rumi and others. And others, of course, from both West and East and everywhere. Even from the tribal chiefs, in Incas and Mayas. I mean, the question is, this sadness, it comes like a sine curve, the sine waves, it's in the mathematics. It's just, but the most important while you're going through that stage of being in the lows and being in a state of, well, it doesn't have to be depression, but sadness, what do you learn? Do you take that as a wisdom? Do you take that something that you evolve as a better human being, you evolve spiritually. And I think that's very, very important. That's something, it's something that I think is a very important lesson to think about.
Yeah, can I say something?
Sure.
So in Zen, there is a saying, every day, good day. Every day is a good day. And no matter what kind of day we have, there is a beauty in it. And it depends on us whether we can discover the beauty in it. And hardship is a good opportunity to think about our perspective, our ego. So we tend to think things must be this way, not that way. So that kind of thing is the function of our ego. And when something upsets us, it's a very good opportunity to think about what kind of prepositions we have. And that's a good chance to reflect on what kind of ego we still have. And when we take the chance and let go of the expectations, it will be like a heart-opening opportunity to find beauty in it.
That's wonderful. That's really, really wonderful. It's very interesting, and I thank immensely to not only the discussants, but have the audience who have taken the time out and their patience and understanding. But this is not a subject like music and dance. It's something which becomes music and dance, but it's the ethos. So, whenever we talk about spinning, and I keep, bringing in, because my name was kept after, I was very honored. But, when you're looking at the whirling dervishes and when you're looking at dancing, dancing in any different cultures, doesn't matter. You go into an ecstasy. I mean, it's an ecstatic, it's a static movement. The question is, it is that particular something that inspires you. That's a happy feeling of being. And I think that is really when the ego is at its lowest, because you are really with the divine, in your spirits, irrespective of whatever religious philosophy, you are one with that supreme energy. And that's something that's, I think, is very, very interesting, because that's the point where it doesn't matter, it's something that you flow. And I think that's something needs to be revived and sort of reminded of us in this very, very chaotic world where we are just running and running, as I said, survival of the fittest. Anyway, it's very interesting. Maria, you've been a politician, a researcher, a corporate person, professor from Bolivia, with the whole thing. And of course, Makiko and Izumi, from Japan. We would like to do some kind of experience in the future, maybe a project where we can possibly do some kind of a happiness retreat. Hi, Izumi. Yeah, go ahead. You were saying something.
Mustafa was putting his hands up.
Oh, yeah, Mustafa, please go ahead. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Izumi. Rumi, thank you to you as well for bringing us together to discuss a topic of significance for all of us, especially during these times. Happiness has to be discussed, I believe. I will make just a few points which are relevant to what has been discussed. I missed the Ikigai part, but I am a big fan of Ikigai, and I read the book, so I know what it means and why people live longer according to Ikigai perspective. So just first point is about what Elias said, and you highlighted that, Rumi, as well. I also believe that I think it's rather impossible to selectively numb our feelings. This is something that I heard from somebody else. It's not my words, but I truly believe in it. For example, like if we try ourselves not to be sad, it's very hard to be really happy. We see this when, in cultures like mine, when society tells men not to cry, then it becomes really difficult to express other feelings as well. If you can't cry, then when you're happy, you're in a controlled happiness sort of stage. So you can't, be joyful and cry for joy either. So I think it goes together, and I think that's how we are wired. I believe that's how I feel as a human. So I think it's this spectrum of feelings that through which we can navigate, that creates also creativity, I believe, because creativity, I feel, has a lot of connection with this wide spectrum of feelings. And without pain, I think most creative people really feel pain a lot, especially for other people, and this part of Ikigai, which talks about, what the world needs. The world needs most of the time that the pain in the world is addressed. The pain that people suffer is addressed. That's what the world needs. So unless we really address those pains that we and other people feel, I think Ikigai would be incomplete, I feel. So the pain, the sadness, the sorrow is really important. And also, ancient wisdom we talked about. One of the ancient wisdom is memento mori, like to remember death, really. When great emperors would conquer a city, somebody would come close to their ear and say memento mori, at the peak of their triumph, So at the peak of their joy and happiness that they conquered the city, they would remind that emperor there is death, you know, which is imminent. So I think these are all balancing acts in our lives, I think. And I'll just cut it short. I think one more point I would like to make is about you know, why people live longer, and both from the Ikigai perspective, I think Ikigai is more about, you know, finding the reason why you live, like
Yes.
the reason for existence. What wakes you up in the morning? What keeps you awake at night? If you find that, I think your metabolism starts working differently. You know, you forget your disease. You, even if you are sick, you just forget about it. So I think that's why it's so important, the meaning of life. And if you find that specific meaning for yourself, that really helps for happiness. And another thing, I think it was Slavica who talked about Harvard study, if I'm not mistaken, and also regarding Ikigai theory. And Maria also mentioned, you know, this drinking tea together with other people for 15 minutes. I think it's the quality of relationships that we have, both with friends and family, that really defines our state of health. Like, if we are in solidarity with people, if, like, when we share the Ikigai that we found with other people, I think that's one of the most happiest moments in life, at least as far as I understand. And final word is about ego. From me, I really like this idea of flow, like a water. You know, if our ego is really high and big, it would be really hard to flow in life, like water. I remember Bruce Lee talking about this, you know, be like water, my friend, you know, because water takes the shape of the cup. So it becomes the cup. So it doesn't try to really change the cup. So when we try to change the cup, then the unhappiness starts because we can't change the cup. So these are like my 2 cents. You know, some patchwork of ideas. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mustafa. Always very enlightening. Thank you very much for your very deep thoughts, very reflective thoughts indeed. In fact, what you just mentioned, you know, that whole word of compassionate behavior, the compassion, really comes from, as you said, the emperor winning the kingdom, the new kingdom, and the soldiers come and say, you know, emperor, there's been a lot of blood that's been, you know, or lots of killing. I mean, that's a price they had to pay to, but the ego, while it's flying to the skies, the ego is in the highest peak. That compassionate moment of the understanding that there are people that sacrifice their lives for it. And then when you have that compassion, and then you give out the compassion and share that compassion with your community community fellows, whatever class they are. I think that's really kind of brings us back to our own self, being on ground, being happy, being, you know, we are grounding, we are sort of connecting from our being, and not only believing that I have achieved and that's it, that's the end of the prize. And it's, again, the survival of the fittest, you know, that is the end game. And this is, I think, where most of the places where the world is going wrong is that it is they're championing themselves and giving out that red carpet for only the people that survive the survival of the fittest, or the people who are, but not sharing enough compassion. So I think there needs to be a balance. So I think, thank you, Mustafa, for bringing that up. I think it's very, very interesting, you know, and you know, thank you so much for, you know, the audience, Slavica, everybody. Anybody wants to go for any questions, we don't have a problem, because it's our ideas of being happy, state of being happy. And again, as I said, as Mustafa point out, the sadness is a very, very important part of the journey. Not only the sadness, the difficulties, the sadness, the ups and downs. It's a very important part, integral part of the journey. And it's how you kind of learn and evolve and grow and move on. And then,
yeah. Can I say something? Accepting sadness or accepting any kind of negative feeling is a vital factor to expand yourself. So if you don't resist yourself, I think any emotion tends to return back to love. Not a love in small meaning, but larger, like universal meaning. As long as we resist what we are right now, it's very difficult to find beauty in it. But once we accept, no matter what it is easier for us to see beauty and love in any given situation. So at least we can try. Sometimes it's very difficult, but I'm trying.
yes. And one thing is just to have that smile, and then just smile of your heart, you know. Just try to get that smile going, and just anyway, thank you very much, all of you, to be with us today on a Saturday evening or afternoon. For Europe and Japan, it's late at night. So till our next program, we'll keep you posted, and the website, all other things will go on the website. Any ideas that you want to do in the coming year for workshops, we are open. We are here to, I'm here to facilitate and help all of you evolve as a community, and we're trying to build this. So it's global. So with that, for me, it's thank you very much to all of you, and wish you a very, very good coming year, and stay blessed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye, Maria. Bye, everybody.
Thank you,
Zoom.
Rumi. Thank you, Rumi.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
guys.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lumi.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. 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 Bye.
Bye.